So welcome back to part 2 of the Tanaka THT 210B. I've got the gearbox side here on the bench. The first thing I normally do with these, any gearbox, is I give this a spin. Give the clutch drum, clutch sits in here, and when you rev, hits these sides, and that's what spins this. Give it a spin. Let you see the blades moving. That means your gearbox is good. But I like to dismantle them, clean them properly, regrease them, you know, everything. So what I normally do, what I normally start with any gearbox side of a hedge car, unless it looks clean as a whistle, which they never do, is I'll just get my Dremel, wire brush on the end, and I'll clean this drum out. See how much better that is? That's it, that's all I do. And then I'm just going to grab a few tools, start ripping this apart. So I'm just starting off with a 10. You can use an impact. I mean, I would use an impact for speed, really. Why aren't I? I highly recommend using like an impact or something whenever you can. It just speeds things up. So let's get this in a better position. 10, 10, 10. This is 10 all the way down. I just dropped one of them. I've seen where it's gone, so it's all good. Put these to one side. Keep these together, these three, because these are just to hold that on. Washers. Keep the washers there as well. One of them's actually missing a washer. Oh well. So that's all together. Then what I would probably do is get a 10 spanner like I've got here. Hold one end of these. Whiz the other end off. Otherwise you're going to be there all day taking this apart. So that's one. Again, keep them together. Then I'll do that all the way down. So just taking all these out. There's just 10s all the way down. So I just used 10mm spanner and 10mm on the other side of the impact. So now we've got just the gearbox itself here. So it's Allen keys. Probably it's quite a small Allen. I'm guessing it's that. Okay, that never normally happens. Yeah, it is that. It's a tiny little Allen. So I'm just going to crack all these loose. There's 6 screws going around the gearbox. I'm just going to crack all these loose, and then I'll be back with you. Right, so these are all out now. This cover just comes off. And then you have what I believe is the diaphragm. Sorry, the gasket. Okay, you have 2 more screws here holding this next bit on. Please say they're the same size. I think they're the same size. My other Allen wrench went flying, so just thought I'd cut quickly to grab it. So that's just 2 more screws under the cover. keep them separate from the others. Now this should come up. Let me just get a screwdriver of some sort. Now this should just, yeah, there we go. Just need something to get under it. There we go. So there's your top rod. To be honest, the grease doesn't even look that bad. The grease doesn't look bad at all. Half tempted to just leave that. The grease doesn't look too bad at all. I'm tempted to just leave the grease, but to be honest, I've got to take all this out, all this gearbox apart anyway, to get to the, well, at least the rod and that, so it's just pointless only doing part of it. So what I'll do is lay that flat on there so you know that goes together, and then I would find somewhere to put the grease that you've just got all over yourself. Wear these, trust me, I never used to wear these, but when you're doing grease you want them, because it just goes everywhere, and you'll smell your hands 3 hours later and it will still smell of grease. There's a little, like, I don't really know what these are called, but they're always sat at the end of the blades. It's kind of like a, I don't know, it's kind of like a sponge kind of thing. I think it just helps it move. So I'm just going to take the gearbox apart now. This all comes out fairly easy. So you take the top rod off, or move the top rod, and your blades should just come out. So I would leave them, like most things, leave them the way you've taken them out, on the table like that. And then while we're here, I would take the rest of the gearbox out, if you can get it out, that is. Just be gentle with it. I'm not proper levering it with this, I'm just trying to help it out a bit. You might have to get something else the other side of it, just to give it, there we go, see, barely touched it. As long as you get something either side of it, it will just pop out. So that comes out like that, and then you have another rod, the same. All hedge cutters are normally built like this. So put that on the bottom so you don't lose it, and put this on the top, because that's how that goes together. Got a little washer here, that's it at the bottom, so put that on the bottom. And then I think there's a bolt holding, there's a couple of Allen bolts holding this rod in, but you don't really need to take this off. This can all be washed how it is. So I'd leave them in. They're holding this bar in, but there's no reason why you need to take it out, because there's nothing underneath it to clean. It's literally, this is the inside of the gearbox here. So what I normally do with this is, I've got old stale fuel, I've got a can of old stale fuel that I keep. I always keep old fuel. Cleaning stuff like this out, it's just, you can't beat it. And who wants to go and buy petrol just to clean stuff? So all my old stale fuel cleans stuff like this out. While you're here, just have a little look. See that? That's your gear, that drives your blades to move, and it's on the other end of the clutch drum. So you can inspect that while you're there as well. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to get this bit cleaned up first, and then once that's cleaned up, I'm I'm going to clean the gears themselves, the gears and the rods, you know, keep it all together still, and then I'll come back to you. So literally all I'm doing to clean these out is old fuel in a bucket, a bottle brush or something like this, bottle or teat brush, something that's gonna agitate what's in there. I use old toothbrush for the little nooks and crannies like in there, and I just go over it until there's nothing left. And then for the bar, I normally use a low grit sandpaper, or just one of these is enough, just to agitate the dirt off of it. So I'm just going to finish cleaning this and then come back to you. So this top side, that's okay with the scourer, it's nice and smooth and clean. This bottom side, the scourer isn't doing it, so I just get some 240 grit and I just cover it in fuel and sand it until it's nice and clean. So just to show you, look how clean that is now. Yeah, there's a little bit of gunk in there, but the compressor will probably blow that last bit out. That's the bottom side, that was really rusty. That fine grit, 240 grit, has taken all that off. It's nice and smooth now, you know, that's how you want it. So we're going to do the same to the blades, and I'm also going to do the same to that lot. So now I've cleaned everything the same way I cleaned this first bar. Even the gears have all been cleaned, the rods on the gear, that washer, everything here basically. So now I'm just gonna get set up and show you how I sharpen them, and then we'll go from there. So basically I just use grinder with a flat disc on when they're off the machine like this. I do sometimes use a little Dremel. I do sometimes use this with a grinding stone attachment. That's handy for if it's still on the machine. But when I've took it off like this and I've got more room, I'll just use this because it's a lot quicker. You know, it's so much faster than the other tool. So I just get this like this and I just go. So that's literally took me, what, about 20-30 seconds. And I've already done basically a quarter of one side. And literally they are, that's as sharp as you're going to get them. Don't want to go too mad. You just want to run it over them a couple of times. So that's all I do, all the way up. all the way up, both sides. Do the same to this one as well. And then once I've done that, I'll come back. So I've just done one, and you can see so much better. You're never going to get it perfect, all the dinks out of them, but you know, that's only taken me about 5-10 minutes to do that, and that's a blade either side as well as either side of the actual bar, and then I've got to do that again. But for the sake of 20 minutes, it's worth it. Sharpen them up both, you can see that, both shiny glinty blades all the way up and all the way back down. So now it's going to be reassembling the gearbox and blades. So it's back to assembling these. Now obviously you want to start with this part. Everything's cleaned up on it. Double check that that gear's moving when you turn the drum. And then it's pretty simple how it goes together. So this washer actually goes on first. So this washer sits over that, like that. And then your gear with one rod on top, one rod on bottom. These do have a flat edge and a curved edge. Flat edge needs to go against this gear. So it's easy enough. One rod over like that, one rod over like that, flat edge to flat edge. And then that just pushes. So you can even get the washer and put it on that bottom pin, and then that pin just pushes into that hole. That pin goes into that hole like that. And we've got to make sure that everything's lined up, and the gears line up as well. So that's basically how that goes together. But what I'm going to do is obviously grease it first. I thought I'd show how it goes together first, because when all the grease is in there, you ain't going to be able to see a lot. So I'd recommend wearing gloves when you're doing this, because you know, it ain't going to hurt you, but grease is a pain in the bum. If you get it on you, you can wash your hands 20 times and you'll still feel a bit of it on you, and you'll smell it as well. So all I do is I just put a bit of grease around that gear, and then like a layer of grease on the bottom before I put anything in there. So I just put, I know it doesn't look like much, but you just want to make sure there's a nice layer everywhere on the bottom before you put anything in. So it doesn't have to be thick, and then I'd even make sure with a clean finger you turn that gear, make sure that gear has some all the way around it, no matter what, has to have some absolutely everywhere. This isn't about the amount of grease, this is just about having a layer everywhere, because having a thin layer everywhere is better than having loads in just one spot. so I always put a layer of it on first, and then make sure all this has a layer in between it all. So I'll put that washer in first. So what I'll do is I'll pump loads of grease into this, and then you can just use your finger to dab it on everything else. Because you just don't want to get this everywhere, because it's a pain in the bum to get off stuff. And then all I do is grab one bit at a time and just make sure that it's got a complete layer over the whole thing, not one dry bit of metal on it. Same with the gear, absolutely cover it. Like I say, it's not about, you don't need to have it on a thick bunch of it, but you need to make sure every last bit of this has got some on it. So even in between these gear teeth, there needs to be some grease in there. Absolutely all over it. So all I've done is put a thin layer over the gears and everything, and a thin layer in there. So now what I will do is put this together how I showed you it goes. Get the washer, put that on the bottom as well, so it's all one thing. Then I would see, like, this is why I said gloves, because you just end up caked in it otherwise. Then I'll just put another load of this in. Don't have to be precise with it this time, just pack loads of it in everywhere, especially where the gear's going to go. There we go, nice bit there. So if you can see that, I'll lift it up for you. See, that's all I've put in. So there's plenty around that gear, there's a thin layer across the whole thing. Then you just want to grab this all in one piece, washer on the bottom, and you just want to try and locate that hole for the gear. And you'll know when it's in properly because it will sit flat. There we go, clicked in. So that's clicked in. You can see it's all, that gear is in line with that gear, and this is all flat. So this is the, not a tricky bit, but it is a bit awkward. One set of blades goes on top, one goes on the bottom. So on the bottom of the blade you have these pins that stick out, and on the ends of the rods you have these holes. So this one's obviously in the way because it's on top, so just take the top one off for now, like that. Get your set of blades, and in there you can see the other hole. Just slot that in there. It's as easy as that. Slot that in there. You'll feel it pop in. It's not quite there yet. There we go. You'll know when it's there because it will be flat again. So that's one. And then you have to get the other one. sort of have to have about 20 hands doing this. All these holes up here should line up when you do this. So the other one sits on there like that. You get your top pin, remember flat side against the gear, and it will just slot over like that. You might have to wiggle it a little bit. There we go, like that. Now all that's flat. So now you've got like that. So you've packed out the grease, you put the washer and the gears all on together into that hole, making sure that this is flat together and lined up. Then you just pop this top rod off, put both sets of blades in, and then this top rod sits over the pin on the top set of blades and sits over this like that. And you'll know when you've got it right, because all the way up these holes will all be lined up, or roughly lined up. So now everything's in how it's gonna be, I'll just go over the top of this whole thing with grease, making sure it pushes into the little gaps around the gear, especially around the gear. Just push this into all the gaps. This is when you want to pack it out a bit. You want to have loads in there. Mostly around the gear, you want the gear's teeth to be packed out. So that's probably enough. So then, at this stage, what I'd probably try and do is, all the grease is in there that's going to go in there now. So I'll probably just stick this cover on, just to stop any of it going anywhere. Remember, you had this separate cover, separate to the actual metal cover. I'll just put this on, and I'll just stick these. Oh, sorry, hang on a sec. There is something I've forgotten. We're only human after all. There's that little buffer sort of thing that just slots down there. You can see where it goes. That just slots in there. To be honest, you probably don't even need it, but I'm putting it back anyway. So it just goes in there. You can see where it goes. Just slots in over there. So now I'll put this on. The reason I'm putting this on now is because it will hold all of that together, but without actually putting every single screw back in. So I'll just finger tighten these two up like that, just to hold this together, just to hold all this together and stop the grease coming out everywhere. Alright, and now you should be able to, alright, be very careful when you do this, but you should be able to stand that up. You should be able to move the clutch drum, and the blade should move up and down like that. That's how you can check it's working. Even though these aren't bolted together, you can see that the blades are passing each other when you do that, so that's how it should be working. So that's all done up to that point now. So now you just need to tighten everything back down. So what I might do is speed you up for this. I've already put these two screws in here, I just need to tighten them down. So let's just stop that there. So all I've done there is just put these 6 screws in for the gearbox plate. Now I literally just need to put the bolts through the bar, the bolts through this here, but again I'll speed you up for that. So all I've done there is put these bolts in, 1, 2, 3. This one here is the first one that has a bolt going from the bottom. Then it's just 10s all the way up, and I put them back on the same way I took them off at the beginning. Just use the impact with a 10 on and that to hold the back. So now they're all together, give this clutch drum a spin again. Should be able to see those blades moving. I think if you spin this and you don't see them moving after you tested it earlier, you've tightened it up too much. So you might have to just unknip these a little bit. So yeah, I had to slightly slacken off a couple of the bolts, only very slightly. And then what you want to do, once this is all together, give it another test like this. And what I would do, the last thing I would do to these blades, and you can get special spray for this, but I would literally just use WD-40. I also sell this in my online store as well. Bigger cans, sets, lithium grease penetrating oil. I just give them a coat with this. Don't go mad, but just a coat. Just a quick coat. Both sides. Make sure you hit everything. So we know the handle will come off first, so we'll put the engine top back on first. And this was pretty simple, it was just 4 screws to hold this on. 2 Allen screws and 2 normal hex nuts. So now this just sits over the top. Your clutch goes in that inside the drum. You might struggle a little bit, but it's gone on fine. So now what I'll do is try and sneak one of the Allen bolts in just to hold it. So all we've done is put Allen bolt, and then a nut there and a nut there. So we're just going to tighten them up. Now, I wasn't going to film this bit, but I actually think it's one of the most important bits to film because it is a bit awkward to get the handle back on. So this is how we took it off when we started this. So what you've got to do is you've got to put the blades through the middle all the way down, till you get to this point, and then take the screws out. This, you can see where it's got to sit anyway, because it's got to sit in line with everything, but you've got to watch out for these little shock absorber plates or whatever they are, because every time you go near one of them they want to fall out. One's just fell out, look. So you just have to fiddle with it a bit. You might have to get a flat head just to hold it back while you slot this in. So once it's there, I'll show you what I mean. You can't really see from up there. See, under there, once it's there like that, it's fine. Down there you can see easier. That bit of metal there is where the screw's got to go into, and the buffer plate thing's just there. So you have to kind of slot it in. So now that's on, you just want to line everything up, and I'll just try your best to get one screw in and started, like with most things. I think I've actually got this one in already. Feels like it's bit. Has it? No. These will be quite difficult to get in. Now with these, I found it's easier to play around with the engine side while you're trying to screw it in, but only try and get one in. Get one pretty much all the way in, leave it a little bit loose, then go to the next one. And this is what I was on about happening. See down there, this little buffer's popped out. So what you have to do is push it, try and get it back in past that, like that. So now I've pushed that buffer back in, and the bit of metal can line up with it, if that makes sense. So now I'd maybe try and get one of these front two in. So all I've done is put one in at a time and just fiddle with the engine side to get them sit right. If you look underneath, you can see it lining up here. So if it's not quite lined up, you can move it and you can see where it is anyway. So just got all four of them in. There's one here, and then two the other side, parallel. Just take your time, make sure they line up right. Get one in at a time, and then just go around tightening them all up. So all I've done now, after doing up them 4 screws, is I've just plugged in the keel wires and put the throttle cable on. Throttle cable just goes through a hole here and into the, just check it's working, check it's returning to idle, which is where this little screw is. See the other end of that little screw there? That should be returning to that every time you let go. So that's all that done. I think we're near enough there. I just need to put an air filter on it, which I've got. So I've just stuck a new air filter on it, and then this just goes over the top like that and screws in. sure that's screwed in. Then I think we're near enough ready for a start up. Just have to clear everything away. So that's choke on, choke off. So we're going to need choke on. Prime the absolute hell out of it. Make sure there's plenty of fuel. Probably won't run for long because I haven't put much fuel in it, but ow. See if it starts up again. Well, that's that, completely done. Blades completely dismantled, cleaned, sharpened, gearbox all regreased. Carb with a kit in it, new purge bulb, new tank grommets. Yeah, wasn't expensive, you know. If I added everything up what I put on this, the air filters I buy mass of them, I buy mass of, so pennies for them. Same with fuel lines and grommets, they're pennies. The most expensive thing I've probably done to this is the grease in the gearbox, to be honest. Everything else is cheap stuff. So all I'll do now is give this a wash here. All this needs washing. Apart from that, it's nothing wrong with it.